Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's Joe from Glen Guitars here in the basement workshop in Marietta, Georgia. And today a customer brought to me a Telecaster, one of my favorites. This is a U.S. Fender American Tilly. It's got a nice little belly carve, you know, we're getting a little bit older and we need some more room. Beautiful guitar. And like I said, he picked it up on eBay. Plays great, sounds pretty good, but he doesn't like the tone of these pickups, which are Seymour Duncan rails. I'll find out what they are when we get inside of it, maybe hot rails. Not happy with the sound of it. He's got a couple of other Tellys, and to my understanding, he's a fairly big fan of the Joe Barden Danny Gatton pickups. That's what he's put in his other Tellys, and no other than the same set he's brought to me to install into this here Telly. Still got a little bit of work to do. Oh, the other issue, not an issue, but what he would also like done, this has the Fender American Telly bridge, and he's brought the Joe Barden bridge with 3 compensated brass saddles that he'd like to have installed as we take everything off. So we're going to evaluate this guitar first. We're going to see what the action is now, string height, action at the nut. That way when we put it all back together, it's just as it was when he brought it to me, or better if we can improve it. So we'll fire up the soldering iron, get everything warmed up, get the strings off this beast, and let's get started. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is see where the action is. Just scratch a piece of paper here and a pencil. That'll work fine. And we're just going to come down to the 17th fret wire. We'll just use a steel ruler with 64th measurements, and we're going to find out. Other side, find out where the action is on this thing. Ooh, it's pretty high. This one's at 7/64, 6. Call that 5, 6. 6 and 7. Great. Well, the reason we write all that down so we can check when we come back and evaluate some of these frets to see if one's out of level, find out why they set it up so high. It might have just been the factory setup when the original owner bought it. No matter, it can play a whole lot better. It doesn't play bad now, actually. We've got a set of Fender Super 250s, is what he'd like to use back on this guitar when we're done. So we'll install those once we get the strings off. There. Boy, that makes quick work of things. So, what I've done, and y'all might try this. I took a old Dunlop winder, which this is stripped out or something, so I snipped that off, cut it back, and just took a hex bit that would fit this, drill the hole down, and fit it in place. Boy, that works great. Stick it on the end of your drill driver, and it makes short work of things, and you don't have to go buy a $32 tool. Anyhow, we got strings loose now. We'll get new ones. So go ahead and just get rid of these. And see what's on the inside. go. So all of the string furlies are not very well seated in the body of this beast here. As you can see, I took the strings out, they all came with it. That's not supposed to happen. Good job, Fender. Well, fortunately for our customer, he brought it to a repair shop, so we'll take care of that. So what the Fender factory did not do, and I've seen this on a fair amount of tellies, is that they only drill a hole big enough. This is actually a flanged ferruli, and so there should be a second. Either the first hole has to be drilled tight enough that these are a tension fit, or you have a second one, a little bit secondary, bigger hole, I'm trying to say, and this would fit down inside. Looks like either they skipped a step or drilled too big of a hole. So we can do one of two things. I've got a set of ferrulis here. We can check and see if it's a little bit bigger hole that'll fit that, or we can just step drill about a 1/16 of an inch on each hole on the drill press, and fit these down so that they're all flush. Well, you know it, as soon as I go over to the drill press, the belt broke. So we have to adapt. I'm not going to try to hand drill these holes. When I was first learning how to fix guitars, I tried that once, won't do it again. That's a job for either best for a drill press, just so you get a nice straight hole. I've seen guys do it with a hand drill, and they're a little more steady of hand and more confident than I am about that. So I got this one seated, and the best thing to do, I just took a countersink bit and just carefully chew away just a little bit on the corners, like that. Drop it in. Nice plastic mallet, put down some tape so we don't hurt the finish. And tap that in. And yep, she's good to go that way. So I'll finish these up, and we'll get started on the rest of the guitar. All fixed, no power tools. And on to the next step. Torque these things down like you would torque down the lugs on a semi-truck. It's just a pick guard. It's not necessary to put that much stress. This standard telly setup, the neck pick guard, or the neck pickup, is screwed into the wood and the pick guard sits over it. This one they've pickup mounted here. $9.20 Custom Shop. Somebody spent a bit of money on these this pickup setup. Well, get that right where it is and continue the disassembly. Oh boy. This is a common see, open these up. It's not too bad, but somebody cold solder joints. They're not shiny. Soldering iron wasn't hot enough. They're probably using a soldering pencil or something. You really should have, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, a soldering station that has the controllable temperature, just because over time these things can weaken and fall apart, make noise. What do they got in here? CTS pots, but they've covered up the value. I have no idea if these are 250K or not. We're going to have to check it out. And get a .022 capacitor in here. The pickup set comes with all new caps, so we'll take care of that. Trying to take out a fender bridge, I've learned, instead of removing all of the saddles and fooling with the springs, you can just turn them on their sides like this and get access to all of the screws. There it is. STHR1B bridge. These are Seymour Duncan hot rails. No bridge ground was installed, so we'll make sure to put that in. Alright, let's continue. Okay, so got the pickups out, and we've checked all the alignment off camera, checked along the center line with the new bridge, and everything's square. We've got good distance for our scale length. It will intonate correctly. Everything's fine except a couple of problems. So the middle two holes, it was a 3-hole bridge initially, and the customer asked for this bridge to be installed, so I have to drill 2 new holes. I put 2 screws in the outsides and checked, that's fine. However, these holes up here are off from where the original bridge was. So, fix for that. Plain old toothpick down in the hole, because after we add the bridge, I'm going to get this square, fix these holes here, and then we'll come back and re-drill these, and they're going to be right next to, or right, offset of the holes there. It's not a huge difference. However, we'd be drilling sideways or whatnot, and that's just going to get messy. So that's the fast and dirty toothpick, and it's done, just like that. So with that in place, we can install this bridge. Now, again, drill press, best way to mark and drill these holes straight in. But like I said, my drill press, when I went to fire it up earlier, the belt broke on my drill press, so I'm operating without one today. I have a self-centering hinge bit, and I'm sure you've seen one of these, maybe you haven't. And what it is, it's for installing hinges, the hinge plate on a door frame. And so it's got a chamfered edge, and it'll fit right down into the hole to center itself, and then as it drills, this bit works itself out, and just makes a very, very small hole. We don't need to go real deep to get it started. But what I like to use this, because just like the hinge on your door, it's a countersunk, and it actually fits exactly right. So when you drill these, it'll center itself up, and you'll have nice square holes. And then we'll go back and finish drilling after we get the initial holes started. So give me a second to chuck up the drill, and we'll get started on mounting this bridge. Now, one thing that you may have noticed, and what I did not do, was fill the center hole on this bridge plate. It's kind of my belief, if these front holes are small enough, you can plug them and re-drill them a million times, but this is a real structural screw. These just kind of hold the front plate down. So we'll leave that. If for whatever reason he ever wants to switch back to the American Standard style bridge, if maybe doesn't like the lip on this and he wants to go to the flat, wide open, why not? You know, and just leave that hole there. It won't hurt anything. You can pull that off and put the old one in. The holes will all line up, except for the front two, which are quickly, easily re-drilled, and we don't have to mess with centering, and otherwise that center, the two new holes that we're making will be covered up by the bridge plate if the customer goes back to that, or for whatever reason. So again, got our self-centering pilot bit for it's a hinge bit. Just give it a quick. That's it. That's all you need. That's enough. And we have two centered holes. So now we take it all back apart. We're going to re-drill those holes to the proper depth, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so a couple things to look out for. Based on painful mistakes made over the years, and learning and self-taught, etc., etc. Many people may think this is standard knowledge, and maybe people don't know this, so we'll just run through it real quick, and if you know it, great. So we just set a couple of pilot holes for these two centers, and we don't want to just start drilling down there. Split the wood, we can do all kind of terrible things. And this is not a self-tapping drill screw, so not a good idea. So we need to drill to the depth that this wants to live, and the fastest way to do that is take your drill bit and your drill. Should get this in frame here. Just lay the drill next to it and take a piece of tape. And you make a flag like such. And basically when you drill down to where the tape is, that shows you where to stop. The other issue, some people don't know this, forgive me for being over explaining this. You don't know what size drill bit you should use, and if you look at your screw, you can lay your screw against the drill bit over the screw. You should not see the shaft of the screw, however the threads are exposed. So basically the you can pick that up or not, but basically you're laying one over the other, and you should see the threads protruding. Okay, lesson's over. I'm sure most people know that, but there are a few folks who didn't, and I've seen the question raised before, so there it is. Okay, so should I start drilling right now? Well, maybe. Well, why don't we check just in case? How deep is this going to go? Well, it's going to go about that far into the guitar, and you should check. People have started to drill without checking and went right straight through the back of the guitar, and now you have new sound hole, I guess. So here we are to our tape stop. That's it. Next one. And we're done. Start our screws in. Now, some guys will take their power drill and run that right down, which may or may not be okay. I prefer to do this by hand so that I'm able to feel what's going on. And see, I can tell that's just a little bit on the tight side. Still got a bit of shapes to this, so we'll work it back and forth a couple times. We'll get it to fit. There it goes. Okay, we'll start this one as well. If you do choose to use a power drill for this application, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate. Go slow, because again, the object is not to, we're not installing lugs on an 18-wheel rig here. Go nice and slow and stop. Oh. And we don't want it to bounce out like that because we'll tear it up, so I stop. Stop just above where it finally seats, and then finish it by hand. If you go in there drilling down full speed, crank it in, ram it in, you know, you can crack things, strip holes. You can snap the head off the top of the screw, and yeah, good luck getting that out. You can't. So there we are. Now that we've got that installed, we'll find a new bit and re-drill these front two holes, and we'll take it all back off. We'll install pickups and restring it, set it up. And there we have it. We've successfully converted the Fender American to the Joe Barden Telly bridge. So now that we've got everything installed, we've got everything's in place, and we know it all fits. Everything's lined up. We did a good job. Now we got to take it all back apart and install the pickups. So stand by for that. All right, pickup time. Let's see what we got in the box. Joe Barden. Here's the neck. Oops. A piece of foil tape with a grounding wire, and we're going to set this here, and then that'll get routed and grounded so that it won't get buzz off of your bridge plate. And we have the bridge pickup, which we will shortly install here into the bridge plate. This is a stacked humbucker, it's actually blades, And what they have done, Joe Barden has already, what Barden's already done for you is with any humbucker, the center taps are fused together and heat shrink tubing on them, so that's great. So all we have to do is strip back the black, attach that part to the switch, and the green and the bare will be grounded, and that's it, you're in business. It's a very nice little pickup. So start setting up some screws and some tubing, and we'll get things moving here. Also in the kit comes with a 0.47 microfarad capacitor. This guitar currently has 0.022 in it. Barden's diagram specifically asks for a 4.7. This is a nice orange drop 2.2, but I spoke with the owner of this guitar, and he just would like the stock setup, so we'll just use what they sent. It's a very, small, dinky little capacitor. Some people can argue about how big the capacitor and if it's an orange drop or a Sprague or whatever. To me, it doesn't make that big of a difference. It also comes with a 0.101 picofarad, 100 picofarad capacitor for a treble bleed, which is optional, but I'll go ahead and install that as well here between the output and the volume lug, the pickup selector and the output on the volume pot, and that as you turn the volume down, it will maintain the high frequencies, as sometimes you'll notice that as you turn your volume down, the pickup gets a little bit muddy. So since they included it in the kit, we'll put it in. What else do they have in the box? Sticker, because you gotta represent. And we got a bag of hardware with some just some rubber tubing and the screws necessary to suspend the pickups from the bridge plate. They've included the screws to mount the telly bridge, standard telly style, like if you had a normal routing into the body. This one isn't configured for that. They've already set it up so that there's holes in the pick guard where the Seymour Duncan pickups were in, and we'll just use those and set it up the way it was, and we'll be good to go in short order. Let's get to work. All right, the moment of glory. The pickup slid right into place, no big deal. Just thread this into the cavity. Leave a little bit of slack, we'll wrap the wires around. Under the neck. Boom. There we go. Everything's back in place. So I'll set this up and aside so we know this set of pickups. And when I work on guitars, I tend to mark things, because as I I've had customers bring me guitars and they say, well, this wire and that wire and this one's shorted out. Now I got to take the whole thing apart to figure out which wire is which, because the manufacturer uses black, green, and red and white, or black and yellow, whichever. So just a piece of tape on there, write the word neck, you know which one's which, and now we're done. So let's get this piece of bridge ground in place. This is a very, very nice little ad that Joe Barden sends. in the kit. This is to the back of the pickup cavity. As such. And across there like so. And now, when the bridge sits down on top, we'll have contact. We'll run this wire in. There it is. And let's go outside the outer perimeter. There we are. All right, now, finally, the bridge pickup. Through the cavity. Up and out. We don't want to pull this so tight that we can never get it back out again. So we'll leave a bit of slack, and we'll have to get back in there. No problem. All right, starting to look like a guitar again. I'm going to go ahead and screw down the bridge and the pick guard because we're done there. And then we'll get to soldering up these pickups and we'll test everything. Once that's complete, we'll clean her up just a little bit. I checked the frets also off camera, and frets are actually quite level. Truss rod's working nicely on this guitar. This was an eBay buy, so you never know what you're going to get on eBay. We'll polish up these frets a little bit. They're a little bit tarnished, but actually almost no fret wear. The nut action was a little bit high when I initially checked out the guitar, so we'll address that. And new strings, set it up, intonate the new bridge, wipe the fingerprints off of it, and we'll get it back to our customer. Stay tuned. Just back up the last, there we go. All right, screws are back in place. We got the pickup set up. Let's start soldering. I had an issue with dealing with these really tiny wires that they use on humbucker pickups, and I've never been good at. Some guys can just take a pair of wire cutters and somehow they generally do that. Somehow I cut it off every time I do it. The other thing was with a like a hobby knife or something like that, and just peel this back and strip it back. But I always wind up screwing up the wire on the inside. I was at Home Depot spending my entire paycheck, and I came across these wire strippers, and they're actually hidden. They're not with the regular wiring stuff. This is over where they have there's cable television wiring and telephone wiring. It's just a very small section in the store. But these are much smaller than a standard wire stripper, where they go all the way down to, I think, 32 gauge. Yeah, 32 gauge stranded wire. So, well worth the buy, because I think these are actually, yep, they're 28 or 32, and just make short work of that, and it's a lot cleaner. Anyhow, I'm going to get all these stripped and ready to solder, and then we'll come back and install everything, and then do a tap test. Okay, here's where you can make a huge mess out of your guitar. If you start fooling around with this thing and got a bad tip, or it's not hot enough, or just lack of practice, you can screw some things up here. Not permanently, but you know, it's going to take a bit of effort to undo yourself. So that being said, this capacitor is routed through, and it's a 0.022, and we're going to use the stock teeny tiny 0.047 cap that came with the kit. That's what the owner of the guitar requested that I do. So we shall heat that right back up. Got another wire going through there, so it's kind of hard to, doesn't want to fit, and I'm honestly in this lighting. Okay, there we go. We got the hole now. So when you are soldering, you need to make sure you have a good mechanical connection as well as a good soldering joint. And so you'll see a lot of guys just flooding tweezers, just flooding the joint with solder, trying to make it stick, and that may or may not work. But what's really important is that we get this mechanical connection, and that is sealed shut with old solder. And so we take our solder sucker, heat this thing up just a couple seconds, and there we go. Suck the old solder out of the hole. And I'm just using these clippers gingerly as pliers, basically. Alright, so bend that one up like so, and we're going to want this one to touch the back of the pot to complete the ground. And when that's all done, there we go. Now, wipe the tip, keep it clean. Always keep this tip clean. And do not crisscross your hands. If you ever watch a surgeon doing a surgery, they're not allowed to reach over. They train this way. A little bit on the tip, that's going to keep the tip clean. And it's also going to help the solder flow. As we noted earlier, there was already a ridiculous amount of solder on this back of this pot, but we're just going to flow just a tiny amount just to get the heat to transfer. There we go. Make sure that ground wire is in good place, and there it is, just like that. Don't blow on it. Once you get your joint completed, you can clip away that lead. And once it's in place, let's check. Now, you see that? This camera will pick that up or not. This wire actually came back out of the hole there, and this is just grounding the pots together. But if that comes loose, you're going to get a weird buzz. You'll be sitting here playing, and The buzz that used to not be there will all of a sudden be there because that joint came apart. You'll be driving yourself mad taking things apart, trying to clear up this buzz. So I'm going to cut that wire really, really, really short too, which was great for his purposes. It's not helping us here. Yep. And you cut that exactly to length, and that's just making life a little bit difficult. Stretch it just a bit. There we go. And now it's hot. Let's walk it right back into the slot. There we are. Okay, on to the pickups. All right, so I'll put the use a solder sucker, get the solder back out of the joints that we had for the volume connection, because we want to add this capacitor, this 100 picofarad capacitor, to the center lug. There we go. And we got a nice joint there. So, put the treble bleed cap in place. Just come back in with these little wire cutters and clip the leads on the back side. And do that for a couple of reasons. So we're not grounding anything out, we're not touching anything else that we're not supposed to be touching. And it's just a nice, clean job when we're done here. Just going to make sure it's done, that's connected, good to go. Now, this ground wire, I could have shortened it, well, anyway, we're going to put it right here to the back of this pot, and that's going to serve as our bridge ground. Clean tip, tin the tip just slightly. The wire's already pre-tinned, and so I'm just going to heat up this pool of solder right here for a second. There we go. And while that's melting in place, screwdriver can hold it down. 2, 3, 4, let it off. And it cools and it's shiny, you know you got a good joint. And we'll go back. And there we go. So there's our bridge ground in place. Now, we need to prepare our pickups. And I'm going to leave all these leads long as they are. Just some people like to, on a Stratocaster it's real important because you get a tight routing and can have a lot of extra wire that causes the pick guard to stand up. And here, yeah, there's enough room. We can lay the wires and arrange it just right so it'll fit. And so we just unwind this a bit. Now we need the green and the bare are going to act as the ground. Just going to twist these together. There we go. Okay, so that's green and bare for the neck, and the black is neck pickup. Goes to the first point, and I'm going to bend this around so that I actually have a mechanical connection. I've said that before, but it's important. You need a good mechanical connection, and then the solder will hold everything in place. But do not rely on the solder to hold. Alright. Bare and the green for the bridge, and the bare and the green for the neck. We can actually bring those two together if we'd like. I'm just going to try to hold them side by side. And move this wire out of the way, and they're going to get grounded to the back of this pot. Now, this can be a bit tricky at times, and always helps to have a little helper in the shop, but you don't always have one. So a screwdriver will work. Clean the tip, and we'll tin it. Lay that down to heat it. This out of the way so we don't burn it. And again, I'm heating the back of the pot, not the wires. You heat the part, and then the solder will flow around and over everything. This is difficult because somebody used so much solder. The heat does not want to flow. So we actually add solder, which seems counterintuitive. However, if you've ever used a wet oven mitt and grab something hot, and that heat instantly transfers right through to your hands. It's kind of the same principle. We get this wet with solder, and then the rest, and we got a good joint, it's shiny, good to go there. Need to make up the connection for the neck pickup, and that goes on the last lug here. Feed it through, just hook it over so we have a mechanical connection, like such, no problem. Now, quick tap of solder on that, and we should be in business. And again, shiny solder joint, and that's it. These two don't go anywhere because it's a humbucker. And we're good. Plug it in and give it a shot. Okay, now we just give her the tap test. We got it plugged in just into the bench amp here. That's in the middle. On the bridge only. Tap. Nothing on the front. That's good. Check this. Nothing in the back. Good. And then the other thing was check your volume. And also check tone should change, so you can check the tone. And it's good. Put it back together, string it up, and got ourselves some Joe Barden pickups in this nice build. A lot of these guitars you buy on eBay, or heck, you even walk into a guitar center, they require a fair amount of work. I don't think people realize that. This is worth learning how to do if you have more than, say, 3 or 4 guitars. Okay, we got her all strung up. Just checking the action. 17th fret is your 64th, and the Fender guidelines, 464 treble, 564 bass side, but depending on your fretwork, how you playing stuff, play hard, you might want it higher. This one feels pretty good. I checked all the frets were level all the way down. We polished, cleaned everything up. Got the neck straightened out with the truss rod adjustment, and we got close to, say about pretty straight, like maybe 5 or 7 thousandths. I think the factory calls for about 12 thousandths, so they even went even more. But so just come along, lay it on the 17th fret, take a measurement, and right now I'm reading about 364s, 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 364s. This one's up to 4, and that's 4. And so if we check, no buzzing. It's not fretting out. Sounds good. Yep. Now, the manufacturer's instructions sheet, excuse me, they recommend fretting the last fret and then measuring again. 432s on the bass side and 332s on the treble side. Looking at these things, they're pretty far away from the strings. Check these again. It helps if you use the right side of the ruler. 432s, and that one's right under 3. I don't know, we'll give it a tweak. See what happens. Alright, so new strings. Okay. For balance between the two. Huge jump in to me, the bass string sounds a little bit quieter, so just give it a half turn. That sounds better. Again, just a quarter turn. Yep, sounds good, feels good. Check the nut action, and basically you press on the 2nd fret and you're feeling the distance of the string to the 1st fret, so you kind of tap on it, and what you're watching is that, if I can pick this up here, it's that gap. So as you tap on it, it should just be barely touching, and a lot of guitars that are right out of the store. They're set up high on purpose. They don't know if the guitar is going to live in Arizona where it's dry, or in Florida. So the guitar will react out of the way, so they kind of leave them high on purpose. And when you buy these things, then you have to set it up. I mean, it might play pretty good out of the store. It could play better. So the nut action feels pretty good on this one, and really you're looking for about the thickness of a business card or a piece of paper underneath, and that'll do it. This could come down just a little bit, but it's not enough that I'm really going to fool with it, because it's, again, if the owner were here and he could play it, he could tell by how he plays and how it feels if he would like that to come down. But a lot of guitars, if you're playing them and they're hard to fret and squeeze down, it's because your nut action's too high. And when you change the nut action, then you got to change the bridge. It's just it's a balancing act between the two. So other than the last step of setting the intonation, it's dead on. Now with these 6 saddle bridges, it's pretty darn hard come forward just a little bit. The 6 saddle bridge, it's a challenge to intonate these things correctly, because if you have individual saddles you can adjust the string, but this one is kind of a give and take between the two. This one's coming up just slightly flat. So we're gonna let the saddle come forward just a bit. Flat forward, that's the way to remember that. And then we retune. Check it again. It's dead on. It's flat. Let's go forward some more. It's almost there. There we go. So repeat that for all 6 strings, and give it a final wipe down, put it back in the case, call the customer. And overall, not a bad project, just standard shenanigans with an eBay purchase and a lot of off-the-shelf guitars, but simple steps, a few tools, take your time, and do a good job. Pretend it's your own guitar. I mean, love it the same as if it was your own instrument on every instrument you touch. And you just go that far above and beyond on each and every one, and customers will come back, because that is the difference that you don't get in most big box mass-produced stores. Anyway, Joe here signing off again, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe and tell all your friends.